So you may be wondering, if you're not a big Photoshop user, well, how do I turn these into banners? You know, what do I do? You know, so let's make a banner, right? Like I said, there's like a zillion different ways to do this. So this is the most basic way to do it. So my video that I have for this assignment goes through this as well. So what you would do is save a copy of your banner. I'm sorry, save a copy of your mood board. So you have your original as a backup. So I'm just going to go to save as, and I'm gonna save it to my computer. And I have multiple screens here, so the save as window is off to the side, but here it is. So I'm just gonna save this as mood board 2A. Hit OK. So now I have a backup just in case something happens. So the quickest way to make some banners is to use your crop tool. So the crop tool in your toolbar is the 5th tool down. It looks like 2 right angles kind of intersecting. You can hit C, and that's a good keyboard shortcut to know. But one of the things that's kind of frustrating about the most recent version of Photoshop is that that crop tool is not really effective on this artboard. So if I use the crop tool now, it doesn't give me the result I want. In fact, what it does is the crop tool doesn't crop. It actually creates a new artboard, which doesn't make too much sense with the tool. You know, cropping is cutting something away. So what you have to do, if you look in your layers, and when you're using Photoshop, Photoshop automatically creates an artboard, and this started with, I think, the most recent version of Photoshop. So what you're going to want to do to make your banners is go to this artboard layer, right click, and ungroup the artboard. So that gets rid of the artboard. So I no longer have an artboard, and now it's a regular Photoshop file. And this is something that's good to know, because now I have what Photoshop originally was when working in Photoshop. There was no artboards, there was just your file, and that's it. So now when I use the crop tool, it gives me a totally different result. So if I want to create a 600 by 600 banner, what I can do is go up here. See this control bar, it says ratio. So I can change ratio to W width by height by resolution. So I'll do that. And then here I'll type in 600 for my width, 600 for my height, and then 72, and that represents pixels per inch. And now when I go here into the artboard, when you scale that, it's going to stay constrained to the proportions of 600 by 600. And let's say I want to make this vase a banner. So I'm just going to focus on this. And then once you're happy, double click. And now you have a 600 by 600 banner. It's kind of off center. I would have done a better job with this. If you go to image and you want to be sure that it's 600 by 600, just go to image size. And you look here under dimensions, 600 by 600. So that's good. And 72. So that's good as well. So that's exactly what you want. So you can use that crop tool to crop out something. Just put your banner dimensions up in here, find a section of your mood board, crop it, and that's your banner. But you just got to make sure you back up that mood board. It's really important that you save it. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to add some text to this. So I'm going to go to the text tool, and that's the little T icon, or you can hit T. And then I'm going to type out the text for this. So this was timeless cosplay. And one of the things I mentioned was the readability of the text in the video. So, and I talk about this too in the module when you talk about contrast. But think about contrast and readability. If it's hard to read, what you can do is something called ghosting. So what ghosting is creating a shape underneath the text and then lowering the opacity of that shape so the text will read. So the shape tool is here near the text tool underneath that arrow. So you might have something already set there, like the line set, but if you click on that line, just click on that rectangle tool here, and the shortcut is U. And then here in your control bar, you have the type of shape tool. So you want to keep it set to shape. You can click on fill here, and you can give that a color. So let's say I'll make it red. But think about your mood board. Here you can choose recently used colors. So you might have this set up correctly. Or you can click on this color picker here and pick a color. Try to pick colors that you've used for your swatches. So you're using that mood board to create the banner colors. So here I'm going to draw out a rectangle, and it has this black line, so that's called your stroke. So I'm going to go into stroke, and I'm going to turn it off by clicking on this diagonal here. So now it has a nice background, and the ghosting effect is when you lower the opacity of the shape that you created. So if you go into layers, under opacity, it says 100, you can lower that. So it's just an effect that you can do. But make sure that the text is readable. So that's a way to do it. So that's a banner. That's me creating a banner from the mood board. Timeless cosplay, it's a nice little vase. So does everybody understand that process?
So for our banner, we're only supposed to use stuff that's on, we're only supposed to use crops of the mood board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because you're pretending that the mood board was part of the campaign to begin with, and now the client needs the banners, and you can only use what you discussed in the mood board because that's the direction that you're going. Plus the fact if you have to search for stuff for this assignment, it just adds to the time that it takes. So use your mood board as your resource.
What if like our text that we got is not available as a font?
So yeah, that's going to be the only challenge. So you're going to have to go into type and find the equivalent to that if you can. So you go to panels here, you can go into the character panel, and then here you have your fonts, and it shows you visually what those fonts look like. So you can kind of look and see, and maybe you'll find something that's similar.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, so for the mood board I just turned in, my problem was that I was looking at even all the free fonts that come with Adobe,
yeah.
and none of them are Art Nouveau. Like, it's weird, actually. I didn't expect that. Like, I typed in Art Nouveau, what do you have? And it said nothing. I only found an arts and crafts font, for example. But I didn't put that particular font on my mood board.
Yeah, you're gonna have to find what's closest. When you go into type here, you go to more from Adobe, and then it goes into this website where you can pick a font. And
Yeah, that's where I went.
yeah, if you look here, yeah, it's not that sophisticated yet where it has Art Nouveau as a category just yet.
No, actually, it does have. I think I saw Art Deco there the other day. But if you go up a little on the page, you can search the fonts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and look, you like pull up like 50 fonts and.
I have a tip for you if you want about fonts.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so I always, when I'm looking for a font, if you go into like on Pinterest and you type in like chubby font or like free, this, you know, whatever kind of name font that are free, then it'll take you. But there's certain sites like Font Squirrel is really good, or DaFont, or sometimes I'll go on like the Foundries, and you can put in the you can kind of like streamline their live trace their like if you put in a preview, you can kind of like live trace it to like fudge something for a project if you need it. So if that helps.
That's a great tip, actually. Is that your cat, by the way? I hear a...
No, it's my dog is like coughing off.
like a
Oh
hair.
my gosh, I'm sorry. I know.
That's okay. Yeah, no, that's a great tip. And yeah, we'll talk about things, different ways to get fonts for our projects when we talk about fonts. I didn't want to get into fonts for this module. I was going to, but then I thought it would just be too much. Because once we get into fonts, then we really have to talk about CSS as well. To use some of those free fonts, there's ways to convert the free fonts over into a web font, but I didn't want to just overwhelm you at this stage. So there'll be ways for us to get the fonts that we want for our projects, but for the time being, just find the closest thing you can.
Okay, so it's okay if I use a font that's not on my artboard then?
Yeah, you won't, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, don't worry about that. I kind of want to make sure that people are just used to using Photoshop in general, because it is like, there's two parts to this class, right? And it's like using the design tools, which are like Photoshop and even Illustrator, and then coding, which is kind of like a lot in my opinion, but just use the font that you can find.
Could I ask you a question?
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
You know what? Whoever else spoke up, go ahead, because I'm blanking on what I was going to ask. It was something about live trace. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if you could post up some links to foundries, like Foundries is free fonts that won't give my computer AIDS, that would be awesome.
Your computer won't get AIDS. I'll tell you that.
AIDS is very treatable these days, though. If it does.
It is. It's the go-to for the generation.
I know this conversation is gonna like segue because it's like now you have this weird disease which is not treatable. You know what I mean? And so it's like that could really segue into so many different things.
Okay,
but,
I remember
go ahead, Andrew. What was your
quickly
question?
before I forget? I included as examples of my fonts some of the fonts that were used in the images I found.
That's great.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
like
totally,
I didn't. Okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine. There's ways. I mean, there's actually ways to actually take fonts that you find on images, and I think you might live trace. Then you can live trace them, and then actually
how does that work?
That's getting into something like way more advanced, but it's something that you can explore. Then you can trace your fonts in Illustrator, and then I have a tool that will actually convert any image into a font that you can type out on your keyboard, and then you can take that font and convert it to a web font, and then use that on a web page as well. So,
wow, cool.
Yeah, so there are some really cool things. In my other Illustrator design foundation class, one of the things we played was converting like images of yourself into a font, which is weird, which is possible. So you can do a lot
of millennial.
I guess all the kids these days need to have their own font. So yeah, it's the rage. Yeah. So, but anyways, so cropping is a really simple way to create these banners based off of your mood boards. So it's kind of almost like the fastest way. So once you have something that you like, there's a couple things you can do to export this. So here in layers, what I do sometimes is I create a new layer, and then there's a keyboard shortcut in Photoshop. It's the shortcut is Shift Option Command E, and that will basically combine all of your layers into one flattened layer on top. And then you can right click on that, and you can say Quick Export as PNG. And then that will bring up your Save As. You go to Desktop, you find your project folder. So this is the important part. I have my index.html in here. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call that Images. Hit Create, and then I will name that, and I'll make sure I name it the correct way. So I will call it timeless, and I'll make timeless cosplay one word underscore 600 x 600 and save.
Could
So
you,
that
you repeat that? Sorry, could you repeat that shortcut? Because that sounds amazing.
yeah. So I'll undo that. I'll
Okay.
undo it again. So you click on the little new layer icon in the layers, which is the box with the plus sign. And this shortcut is Shift Option Command E. And it took all of your layers and it flattened it into one layer. And
Cool.
Command E or G? Sorry.
E. E.
Okay.
It's the letter, yeah, letter E.
So
It's-
on PC,
It would be-
command is, oh,
Yeah, on a PC, it's going to be Shift Control Alt E.
thank you.
Yeah, so that's a great shortcut, because the thing about that shortcut, if you go into your layers palette here and you right click, you have merge visible and you have merge flatten, but you don't have that capability to take all of your layers, retain the layers, and then merge it into a layer all by itself.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's great, because what you could do is you can create variations, right? You can turn this off and maybe, you know, save another one, you know.
Oh,
so
I see.
you know what I mean?
Can you export it as things other than a PNG or only PNGs?
This quick export here in the layers, it's only PNG.
Okay.
Because like I was saying earlier, Adobe knows that PNG is like the most popular format, so they gave you this quick way to export right from the layers.
Okay.
Export. Now the other way to export this is to go to File, go to Export, Export As,
Yeah.
and then you can pick PNG here. Yeah, you can pick other formats here then. This is where you can pick JPEG, GIF,
Okay.
SVG.
But it'll only export that like top where the layers are all merged together, like.
No, that will automatically merge it for you. So when
I
you
got it.
use an export as and you pick a file format that does not have layers in that format, it's going to automatically flatten the image. So there are file formats that let you have layers in them, like the default Photoshop file, you have your layers, a TIFF file, or a Photoshop PDF. But if you use a web format, it's going to flatten it automatically for you.
Right.
Now the thing,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, go. You can go.
I was just gonna say, it seems like it always warns you and tells you that it's going to be a much larger file. Like, you know, if you're, although I guess JPEG it doesn't, right? But if you try to do a TIFF and you have a bunch of layers, it's like, you sure you want to export this because it's going to be huge.
Right, and for web file formats,
It's not worth it.
layers don't come into play at all, because there is
Right,
no
yeah.
web file format that will let you have layers anyways. Because TIFF is a print-based format.
Right. What is like in, and then I'll shut up, like in a quick like summation, like what I always thought PNGs were only really great because you could export with transparencies. Like, do people use PNGs nowadays more than JPEGs? I thought JPEG was the sort of default small export thing.
PNGs are now the default for a couple of reasons. So like I was saying earlier, there's the two concepts. There's lossless and lossy.
Right.
So lossy adds compression, and that's why JPEGs can be so small. It adds the compression, but if you look at those compressed JPEGs, they have like a weird kind of pixelation to them sometimes.
Right.
Especially when you scale them up. Well, PNGs, there's no compression, so it's lossless. You don't lose anything. So PNGs are great because you can upload them to the website, and then you can download them, and then you can use them for other things. So there's no compression that distorts or causes the image to look bad.
But aren't the files like much larger than a JPEG?
They are, but because of higher bandwidths, you know, even with like cellular, mobile technologies, 5G, that's no longer an issue. So, you know, the added amount of space that the PNG takes up it's really
Yeah.
not big of a deal. So it's almost like the quality is preferable over the the amount of time it takes to download. And you notice too, like you go to websites these days, even with like average connections, like everything pops up, right? It's not like you're waiting
Yeah.
for images to show up anyways.
So if you were like a photographer, and every photographer these days is heavily running an Instagram page, and you
Right.
were to like export your images, are photographers these days exporting PNGs and uploading PNGs to Instagram?
Yeah, I would guarantee that they're using PNGs.
Not JPEGs? Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, definitely not JPEGs.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're probably like shooting like in RAW, like using like a format, and then
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, no, I think I have friends who there's these like photography groups, and they all kind of follow each other, and they use
Right.
high end whatever Sony
Yeah.
7.3 cameras. Stuff. They get these beautiful images, but yeah, they're focused on creating like perfect Instagram photos. So yeah, PNG is the way to go.
Okay, interesting. Good to know.
Yeah, I just want to show you two things. When you export as does have this added feature where you can add this little plus sign, and then you can save out multiple files. So I have that PNG here, and then I think, and you can do this too. And so it has this select all. So if you have multiple artboards, you can have multiple banners, let's say, and save out multiple files. So that's why this bigger export as dialog exists. And then there is also just your normal save as. So if you go to save as, you can also select PNG down here as well. There's just less options to play with. But for our purposes, if you're creating one banner at a time, then doing a quick export it's going to be fine for you. There's ways to go about this where you can use artboards. So there's some more like advanced techniques, but I just want to focus on the cropping technique for this assignment. I may do a video where I kind of go into the more advanced techniques, but it's a lot more to talk about. And when I talk about advanced techniques, you can have artboards in Photoshop. So if I go underneath my artboard, my move tool, I have an artboard tool, and this is no longer an artboard, but if I draw out here, that's another artboard, and then I can have another one. So all these artboards could be different banners. And then if I go into export as, you'll see here, all of these are these different artboards now. So basically what you could do is have one Photoshop file with 10 banners and then export them all out as PNG files. That's a more kind of advanced workflow. So I would just stick to cropping unless you want to learn that. I can definitely have a video where I can show you that process. But let's talk about now bringing this banner that I just created into my HTML file. So here I am back in brackets, and I'm going to click on that lightning bolt so I see the web page. So I'm in brackets. I want to start to add my images into my HTML file. So you're going to use an image tag. So you first have your less than symbol, and then you type img space, and this menu pops up in brackets, and it's giving you all those attributes that go along with the image tag. So you want to use a source attribute. So you type src, and then you say equals. And this is the cool thing about using an IDE. In the menu that pops up here, it's actually giving you the file directory to where that image that you just saved is located. To have this appear, though, it has to be inside quotes. So you type your quotes, and then you can click on images, and then there's that banner that I just saved. So it's right there because I saved it into that images folder. I click on that, and you know it's working if you highlight it, and then you see the image appear. The body tag is red because I didn't close off the image tag with the greater than symbol. So I'm going to close it off. I'm going to hit save, and there's my image. It's huge in the web page, so there's the image. That's it. So
How do
you
you change the size of it?
Well,
Because it's 600.
yeah, this is the size that I want. So I wanted
right,
a 600 by 600 image.
Got it.
I had it scaled up because I'm using I had it scaled up. That's the proper size at 100%, but I was using Command Plus.
Oh, right. Right. Okay.
But yeah, so that's the basic process to bring the image in. So that's why it's important to save that image in an images folder. So when you do create that image tag, Brackets will know where to find it. So it's keeping things organized. It's named properly. Whenever you have a image tag with a source and it's pointing to something and you have a /, that / indicates that whatever is behind the slash is a folder. So images / is a folder, and what comes after that with the file format is the thing that's in the folder. So that / indicates that there's something in a folder. And that's good to remember once we get into like navigation, how to set up your navigation, because we'll be using this structure for other things. Because you'll have multiple web pages and you want to link to web pages that are in folders. So a / means that something is in this images folder, and what's in it is that image that we created.
Joseph, one quick question. If I set the image name 600 by 600, does that mean the size of the image?
Yeah, that's in my naming convention to indicate.
So in the web page, it will automatically train to this size?
No. There's for that you actually have width, where you can change the size here, but we're not doing that. We're just having your size set
Okay.
in Photoshop. So you don't need to change the size as long as you follow the dimensions in the files in Photoshop. That's all you need to do.
Okay.
So when go ahead.
Do you know if in PC we can decrease the size of the website? Because you say you decrease your size of your screen, but
Oh yeah, when you're on any website, any web browser, usually you can use on a Mac it's Command +/-. You can just make your bigger, smaller using Command+, or on a PC it's Control +/-.
Okay, thank
At
you.
least Chrome, yeah. I do that when in my in explaining things, just to make it easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. And it works too in brackets, so you can make your Command- will make it smaller. You know, you can make your code bigger or smaller. So sometimes I do that just because it's easier to see sometimes. So yeah, so basically the setup in brackets is you'll have an H1, and that will be the company, timeless cosplay, and then you'll have an H2, and that will explain the type of banner. You'll just say, you know, you can say 600 by 600 banner. And then in the P tag, just have some text explaining, you know, this banner is for, you know, bases. I don't know. It doesn't really make any sense for what I'm doing. So that's going to be the way it looks. And then basically from the H2 down to the image tag, that's repeated 3 more times. So if I had the proper banners in here, you would see the next size, the next size, and the next size. If you want to do a screenshot of this, what you have to do is make it smaller and then do your screenshot.
So we should put all the banner in our one file.
Yeah, put all of your banners into one web page, and I can
Okay.
give you this code, so I can save this and I'll upload it as a file. So all your banners are going to be in just one web page. You're just making another web page here. Still getting you used to coding and creating the web pages, but nothing sophisticated. It's basically using boilerplate code.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So does anybody have any other questions? So it's pretty straightforward. You can, you know, if you have more Photoshop experience, you can, you know, play with the mood boards a little bit more. Otherwise, it's just a matter of cropping and adding the type. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole assignment for assignment 3. And then just go through the module, review the principles of design. I talk about some other things. I talk about picture superiority effect, which basically means images are remembered more often than text. So images have a stronger implant on your cognitive awareness of things than text does. So thinking how you can use images effectively. Because after this assignment, I'm going to have you work more with text and image together, and we can talk about how text and image, when combined, can have a certain influence. But go through the design principles too, because there's other things that you need to be thinking about from a design standpoint, and that's creating, you know, nicely designed web pages so users stay on the site, they don't bounce from the site. To think about user retention, to think about how long a session is. When a user's on the site, they stay on the site, so they're engaged. So you have like sessions as certain, you know, a way to quantify search engine optimization is the session time. You know, a long session time means they stay on the site, which is good. So that's where, you know, good design comes into play to ensure that people will stay on the site and they enjoy the site and they like to spend time on that website. But yeah, is there any other questions then? I think I kind of wanted to just make sure you had the technical knowledge to go through this assignment now. So does everybody feel pretty comfortable?
Yeah, I just have to get used to Photoshop. I'm not very familiar with all what you did, how to create banner.
Yeah, so in my videos, I go through that whole cropping exercise. So watch the video, and that basically repeats what I just did. But I can, I kind of want to create a couple more videos where I can show you some other techniques, so you have a variety of ways to create these banners. Besides cropping, there's some other things you can do in terms of creating artboards and other ways to go about it. You know, if you want to experiment a little bit more with the design process for the banners.
Does it work? The Photoshop work the same with PC and Apple, right?
Yeah, they're pretty much the same. Yeah, both. There's really no huge difference between the two. So there's some nice things on a Mac that's kind of more about the operating system, like using like your phone to take a picture and then sending it via AirPlay. But I think Windows has the equivalent as well. So yeah, they're pretty much the same. Just remember for keyboard shortcuts on a PC, Control is the equivalent of the Command key on a Mac, and the Alt key on a PC is the Option key on a Mac. So those keyboard shortcut modifiers are different, but other than that, they're pretty much the same. There's no difference. I use them both. Sometimes I like using a PC better. than a map. It just depends.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So any other questions? So yeah, so if you're done with the mood board, go ahead and do that discussion and then jump into this assignment. If you're still working on your mood board, that's fine. You know, I give you guys more time to do these things. You know, there's no penalty for a late assignment. Just try not to get far behind. And other than that, that's all I really have to talk about tonight. So if you have any questions, just drop me a line through Discord. But I think I'm good. So if you guys are good, I think I'm gonna end the session.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. And I'll upload this video. I'll upload this whole video. I try not to upload the whole videos because it can be long, but I'll probably upload this whole one. I break them up into sections, and then I sometimes forget to upload a section. But I'll upload the whole thing. So, all right. Good night, everybody.
Sounds good.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.
See you later.